Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ.
And I'm Chip.
And I want to thank our viewers right now. My phone's been ringing off the hook for the past couple of days, not only for our last show, but the show before that, with more information and more topics for us to follow up on. I got several of them just this morning before I came into the studio. So remember, this is your show, so keep those tips coming. And right now, let's just kick this off with last night's Blockapoolaza event. Blockapoolaza. Basically, it's a party downtown where they close the streets and everyone has a good time. But it didn't seem to happen that way for a lot of people. People had a good time. They watched it. It's a great event. But people were asking, why are we having this and how can we afford this? They're saying we don't have money in the budget for police. We don't have money in the budget for fire. We have to go to pay-as-you-throw. But we can afford to put on this Blockapoolaza event so the mayor looks good. I personally like the event. I think it's a great thing, but I'm also not blinded. It is definitely a diversion. It's to take your mind and your questions away from what's going on in Fall River. And we've seen this a lot, haven't we, Chip?
Yeah, it's more than that. It's a kind of musical chow mein sandwich. You know, this is the way they buy the votes. They want people to forget about what's happening in Fall River. They want to go, oh, you know, they had a jungle gym at Lafayette Park, or they have Blockapalooza. We have all these events, and you know, the fact is, you know, I think we should have a lot of these if we have the money. But that's the whole problem. We've talked about this for show after show after show. This city has no perspective. They have no ability to comprehend what's going on in the community. The city's broke. We've got no money. We're short of firefighters. We're short of police. And what do we have? We're getting Office of Economic Development positions. We're getting Blockapaloozas. We're getting, you know, this is politics. You know, the fact is, every time there's some kind of event that the mayor can get a selfie with, this is just a diversionary tactic to take people's minds off what's going on. The problem is that the people who are suffering the most don't get the Blockapalooza.
Yeah, but you know, Chip, we have to look at what the mayor is truly doing here. He is doing a lot of diversionary tactics. I mean, he came out and said Fall River Celebrates America is next. He's going to bring Fall River Celebrates America back. And many people came out with comments, and you could read them online, that, you know, Mr. Mayor, don't tell us that you plan on bringing the event back. When you're 95% there, let us know, and we'll help you bring up the last 5. You know, it's craziness that you would do that. Fall River Celebrates America died or was killed by the Chamber of Commerce because the amount of money they raised putting on Fall River Celebrates America could be raised 4 times over by putting on a golf tournament. So it came down to the almighty buck again. And think about it. Fire, police, waste management were all called to those events. And as far as we know, nothing came back to the city. Those were all in-kind contributions. I mean, can we afford more in-kind contributions?
No, the reality is I think I worked at the first 4 or 5 Fall River Celebrates America. As a matter of fact, a very good friend of mine, Monty Ferris, was the chairman for a couple of years. It's a great event. It's nice. It brings people to the waterfront, what little we have of it. It's not exquisite, as the mayor says, but that area is nice, and it's a nice event. But again, that's an event that's a few days long, and then it's gone. And the logistics of that event, the time and effort put into that event should be put into running this government and getting it back on its feet, not running some kind of, so we can get more and more selfies so the mayor can walk around and, you know, with candy cotton and candy apples and take selfies. This is not what the city is in position to do. We have to deal with the realities. This guy thinks that it's kind of like an alcoholic, you know. You have a problem, you get drunk. The problem doesn't go away. The fact is we can have all the Blockapaloozas and all the Fall River Celebrates America that we can, but the fact is it doesn't eliminate the fact that this city right now is on the brink of receivership, if not in receivership, and the city's a total disaster.
Well, this is the thing. We're not addressing those issues. And this week I started looking at some of the interesting facts about our city Department of Community Maintenance. As we've spoken about on this show before, we believe that solid waste management should be removed from DCM and should be placed in its own department. It is now on an enterprise fund, which means it has to be self-supporting. And I spoke to 2 city councilors, and I got some interesting statements. One of the city councilors, Councilor Mayoral, said that he wants to sit down and meet with me to go over the facts that I had. And I actually waited for his phone call, and it never came in. But I'm sure Councilor Mayoral, he is very busy. He will get a hold of me and say, okay, we need to sit down and talk about these things. And I spoke to Councilor Pereira. And it was interesting, some of the information I had gotten back. As far as I've been told, as far as I've seen, in all the dealings with the enterprise funds, they have to be self-supporting. They have to support their own budgets for their departments without tax dollar intervention. But I was told that, oh no, the enterprise fund is set up that we can't take any money out of it, but we can put money into it, which was very interesting because that kind of circumvents the whole meaning of an enterprise fund. And Ken Pacheco, when I asked him about the enterprise fund several weeks ago, he said that was set up under Bob Correa, and we don't need to separate it. People who do trash collection and solid waste management, they only do that. They don't do Department of Highways and Community Maintenance. And I said, that's interesting because I know I've seen them go up in cherry pickers and put up Christmas decorations and banners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They clean up after parties in the park and whatnot, because we have another one of those coming up very soon, which is the Holy Ghost Feast. So who's going to clean up all of that? And who's going to handle all that waste management? Because that's in the period of time when we have pay-as-you-throw. So if we can put money into an enterprise fund, but we can't take it out, what was the sense of having an enterprise fund at all? Chip, I'm confused.
Well, I guess, you're confused, CJ, because you actually looked at the law that we went over on the show.
That's
Chapter 44, Section 28, and I believe it's subsection F is one of the ones, that says basically that money can only be used in relation to the solid waste. And also an enterprise fund is supposed to be self-sustaining. But in Fall River, we make our own rules. It's kind of like the city council meetings. They have Cushing's Rules of Order, but they never abide by them, and nobody knows what's going on. There very well may be a violation of the law here, and we're going to check into it. But that's one of the problems that we have in this city. We have this kind of, our government has this kind of cavalier attitude about laws. It's like we only abide by them when they suit us, but if they don't suit our agenda, we just kind of ignore them. And, as a matter of fact, I heard that there's a new page called Threw Up in Fall River that has almost 1,000 people on it already.
Actually over that. It's
over
like
1,000.
Over 1,200 people so far.
And it's quite, it's X-rated, by the way. Don't let your children look at it. If you go to that Facebook page, it's an open page. Don't let your children look at it because it is X-rated. There's a lot of expletives there, but it has some very interesting stuff on it. And we were told about a criminal complaint being filed against someone for something that was said about a city attorney. So again, we use laws to threaten people. We were threatened when we tried the recall petition. We were threatened that they were going to file a harassment suit against us for attempting to exercise our right as people under the law to recall the mayor. And they obstructed us, and obviously we're in that position again. But, the problem we have here is that they instituted the pay-as-you-throw under Chapter 44.
Correct.
Yet, they're not abiding by it. At least it appears as though. And they don't even have the wherewithal to try to check to see if they are. They just go, the hell with it. That's the way we've always done it. Well, guess what? If what you're doing is illegal, it's illegal. Because you've been doing it doesn't make it right. Two wrongs do not make a right.
Only in Fall River.
But 3 rights make a left.
Only in Fall River. And speaking about, following the law, an article was released in regards to the Boston Redevelopment Authority, and the new mayor has taken them to task, and he is putting in a whole new set of rules, regulations, and auditors, which should have been there in the first place. But for some reason, they've ignored it. And this comes to an issue that's been coming up here in Fall River about replication of housing units, et cetera, et cetera. And what these developers were doing in the Boston area was they were taking the money and they were allowing the tenants to not pay their rent so they could show an increase in vacancy so they get more money. And they never went to collect that rent. So now the mayor of Boston is basically streamlined the Boston Redevelopment Authority, and he put in a set of auditors who looked at it and kind of pulled their hair out and said, what is this mess? Nothing is on computer. Everything is in paper files. They're all over the place. There's no accounting practice that's accepted, and every single department or area is on a separate accounting system that doesn't communicate with anything. So money was disappearing and multi-millions of dollars missing, and we're due the city of Boston. Well, that's going to stop now, and the redevelopment authority there is taking a good kick in the backside. And the state inspector general is also looking at it. Now, my question is this. Fall River RDA, are you in compliance? Because remember, they're quasi-public. And the city council just shot down 2 new RDA appointees. So let me ask you something. Why would they do that? What is going on at the RDA that we don't know about? And maybe we should know about, because we know our mayor doesn't want to see anything. And we know our city council, while sometimes grow a set, I don't think they're really looking into everything. If this is going on in Boston, what makes you think it's not going on here in Fall River? Chip, any comments?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I have to tell you, CJ, you shouldn't use words like you did in your little speech in Fall River. You streamline government, that's an expletive.
Oh, yes, true.
Audit, that's not even in the dictionary. Those are words you can't use in Fall River, because if you mention audit, everybody runs and hides and starts making excuses why we can't have an audit. Streamline government? Nah, to hell with that. Why should we streamline government? We just spend more money and tax more. I mean, the fact is it happening in Fall River? Absolutely. And the sad part is we know it. Everybody knows it. Yet nothing is ever done. We get a lot of rhetoric. We hear the city council talk. At the last council meeting we were there, they were talking about Mr. Noon saying there was 134,000, 137,000. And I mean, he's already forgotten. I don't know whether he's got amnesia or he's got Alzheimer's. But the fact is, it's kind of hard to have someone in charge of the books that can't remember numbers. Especially when he said them in front of the city council. And now he's talking about, well, we got 38 million. Well, dummy, that's the figure you allocated in the budget for this year, FY15. The number you were referring to, and I remember it, and you're supposed to be the guy that's doing the numbers, and I remember that was the number that you said was left in the FY 2014 budget. So, these are the kind of things that, you have to question, and I applaud the mayor of Boston, because he is kind of really, he is trying and he's making an effort to kind of straighten the city of Boston out. And believe me, running the city of Boston is a lot more complex than running the city of Fall River. It's a huge job. The fire department alone has almost 2,000 men. So the police department's even larger. That is a massive undertaking, running a city like that. And he's doing what has to be done. And maybe we should take a page from that. But, what we're going to do again is go down there and we're going to listen to, rhetoric. We're going to listen to posturing. We're going to see, and nothing ever gets done. And this is why. Where are we left? We talk about this every show, basically. Where are we left? We're left to do what we should have done a long time ago. Vote them out. Put people in that will change. Let other people be the change. And if they're not the change, get rid of them and keep doing it. You know, we've got to change the way we do business in this city. It's obviously a failure. We can no longer have a city council that just talks and does nothing. We can't have a mayor who walks around and, you know, talks about the Olympic Games, and maybe you should have American Ninja too. I mean, let's try for everything. We can have a reality show, you know, life on the 6th floor of Government Center, behind the $9,000 door.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, this is the problem we have in this city. You know, we have a mayor that, I don't know, I don't know whether he's bipolar or he has no ability to comprehend what is going on in the city, but he is apparently oblivious to what's happening. You know, he doesn't even talk about the real issues. He talks about Fall River Celebrates America. Well, they're diversions, but also, I'm not even sure after having conversations with him if he actually realizes he lives in Fall River.
Well, that's the big, you know, $64,000 question. You know, people keep asking, you know, does he know where he is? You know, and I don't want to say that, you know, we look at Fall River as citizens, and people, and you've said it numerous times, you're proud of living in Fall River, and you know, you've been a proud citizen of Fall River for many years. But our children aren't doing that, you know? I mean, they're looking at Fall River, they're saying, you know, what a crap hole, you know? And unlike Chip, I kind of try to use the more sweet vernacular. But when I'm seeing that no matter what you do or try to do, you get kicked. And it's not a physical kick, but you know, you get kicked by the system. You know, the old saying that you can't fight City Hall may be true here in Fall River, because the only way to get anything past anyone in City Hall is to join them and to bring it in through the back door. And that's not exactly the way I want to do business in Fall River. I want transparency. Something the mayor says he wants, but I think he uses opaque paint on that window because nobody can seem to see anything. So it makes it very interesting. I received a phone call this morning, and I was talking about this earlier, that, you know, right up until the showtime, and this was a caller who lives in one of our senior housing complexes, and she was talking about how a fire official came to their complex, and they talked about some safety issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of that, they didn't even offer the gentleman a cup of coffee or a soda or a donut or anything to eat. And she asked, you know, where's the money for this? And she goes, oh, well, they give us money to be the president of the organization. But, you know, what am I supposed to do with that? You know, probably spend it on her medicine or his medicine, I don't know. But when you see the corruption down to that little tiny bit of an event, because I've seen events at other properties run by the Housing Authority, and their presidents are providing donuts and coffee and, you know, soda and sandwiches and all kinds of stuff. Why is this happening at some housing complexes and not other? I mean, I know Colette Kuchar is now in a nursing home, and she's not there to make sure these events go the way they're supposed to, but nobody picks up the ball. And now some of these seniors are saying, well, you know, this one's getting money for doing it, and that one's getting money for doing it, but I'm not getting money for doing anything. And where's that money coming from? So I have that question too. So I'll be getting a hold of David Sullivan, and I'll be asking him about that, because what is this money for? Where does it go? Where does it come from? That's my question. You know, where is this money? Because if corruption can be so big at the top that we can see it, what about the little corruptions down the bottom?
Well, it transcends. That is the paradox that is Fall River, because on one hand we don't have money for fire and police, yet we have money. We find money to get a new, economic development coordinator or whatever.
$100,000.
$100,000 job. And that's without the ancillary support system he'll ultimately get, he or she, whoever it is. We always seem to find money when we have no money for $9,000 doors, for shower renovations, but we can't find money for what really you need. That's the paradox that is Fall River. We have, as I said, I don't know, months ago, maybe a year ago, at one of my presentations around the council, this truly is a tale of two cities. We have the city that the well-heeled live in, and we have the city that the rest of us live in. And it's almost a throwback to the era of when we had, this city was, and some people refer to it as the golden age of Fall River, when truly it wasn't. It was a golden age for the mill owners. It was a golden age for the people who lived in the highlands and looked down on the people living in squalor in the tenements. As a matter of fact, in a book called The Untold Story of Labor in the 1800s, they had a Fall River mule spinner testify in front of the Senate on how he managed to live on, like, I don't know, $17 a year or something. He talked about going down to the Taunton River and getting clams and picking wood from the railroad ties. I mean, the abject poverty that the people lived in Fall River then. And I mean, and we look at it today, not much has changed. You know, we have two cities here, and that's the problem. The problem is, it seems that the people who really run this government have no conception of what they're doing to the people. As I said, you and I both know people who are living on under $900 a month, and they own homes. And you know, there's no compassion. And I said it once. It seems that this city has lost its soul, and it's tragic.
You know, driving into the studio today, I kind of took the long way to get here. I went right through the entire South End, and then came up right up here to BCC, and I couldn't believe the number of signs I saw in front of businesses, in front of gas stations, in front of variety stores. We accept EBT. And I'm like, has it really become that in Fall River, that we accept EBT everywhere? And that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. I mean, it's a bad thing in the sense that our city is so far into poverty that we're living off the government handout, which we've been saying for the longest time. But I think what speaks highly to it also is the fact that we live in a community where back in the golden age, this city was divided. Okay, if you lived in the Flint, you had the French on one side, you had the Portuguese in another section of town, you had the Syrians, the Lebanese, all in one section of town, and you could count them by blocks. Okay, these 5 blocks are all Lebanese and Syrian. And we've done away with that segregation, but we still live with the same fiscal mentality that it's okay to be poor because that's all we've ever known. And again, if you want change, you have to be the change. And we don't see a lot of that happening here.
Yeah, you're right. We have had a caste system in this city, and we still do. You know, we seem to almost accept it. And, you know, we talked about economic development, and, you know, Kenny Viola and I had a little discussion at the meeting. And, you know, you made up a good point. You know, maybe we could attract a Gucci store into Fall River if EBT covered Gucci bags.
Probably.
I mean, otherwise, we're not going to get a Gucci store. Yeah. The fact is that, you know, Fall River, they just don't get it. 23% of the people living below the poverty level. More than 50% of the population is either retired, on disability or some kind of public assistance, or unemployable. So, I mean, when you got a city like this, they can't spend money. And as I said at the last council meeting, when I grew up in Fall River, yeah, we had different neighborhoods, but everybody worked. They all worked in the mills. They all had money. And you could walk up Pleasant Street from Stafford Square and only up to Flint Street, and there were 7 restaurants. Why? Because everybody worked and everybody had a few dollars. It was routine. When I grew up, every Friday night we went shopping, and then we went out to eat. And on Sunday morning, after church, we went to breakfast. And we had businesses. And it seems that our Office of Economic Destruction just doesn't understand that. They keep trying to bring business into a community that doesn't have people that can support business. And that's why I said, look, we've got to bring people back into Fall River first in order to bring business back. And they don't grasp that. But on another quick note, I want to get into Fall River has transcended. The last city council meeting, they talked about the illegal immigrants. So I just wanted a quick thought on you, since that issue actually was presented before our city council on a local level, but that's also a state and national issue.
Yes, Governor Deval Patrick made the comment that he wants to equate illegal immigration in the United States to the Holocaust. Because in 1939, the St. Louis came over from Germany with 900 Jewish refugees, and we refused them admittance to the United States, so they were sent back to Europe, and about 50% of them were killed. So is that what's going to happen to our illegal immigrants now? We're going to ship them back, and they're going to be killed? I mean, I don't know. I think that the commentary that was made at the City Council chamber, while it is valid, I think it's also not very well accepted in Fall River. It's not accepted in Providence. It's not accepted anywhere. We are a city of immigrants. We have always been a city of immigrants. We always will be a city of immigrants. But there is a difference between the way our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents came here and the way some of these people are coming today. And to have between 1,000 and 2,000 detainees being housed at the North Dartmouth House of Correction in their ICE facility, and they're looking at releasing them with EBT cards. I'm a little, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I think Rhode Island, there was a few cities in Rhode Island are already opposing the bringing these people in. And yeah, I have a problem also with classifying them as refugees. They're not, you know, the countries they're leaving aren't in the midst of a civil war. They're not in the, there's no, you know, I mean, obviously there's abject poverty. That's why they're coming here. But there's no, you know, there's no political turmoil where they're being threatened as enemies of the state. So they're technically not refugees. Look, they're people that are coming here to try to get a job, and they're coming to the land of quote unquote opportunity. And while I sympathize with their plight, to me, they're not refugees. They're illegals, and illegals should be, you know, rather than trying to figure out how we can keep them here, we should be devoting that energy to figuring out how we can process them quickly and get them back to their own countries.
Yeah, well, again, a lot of people don't want them to go back. They want to give them the opportunity to live in another quotation, the land of milk and honey. I don't know how much milk and honey we have, but you know, we're the land of milk and honey. So it's interesting to see what's going on locally, throughout our state, and nationally. And we have to address those issues altogether. Our social service system can no longer handle this. And they can barely meet the needs of our own people, and now we're going to have an influx of, you know, a couple of million of people from Mexico that are here illegally, and we're going to spread them out amongst the 50 states, and the federal government is going to find some way to pay for them. I don't know if that's going to work, and I don't know if a lot of people are going to accept that.
You're like 30 seconds. Quickly, I'm going to say something that's going to get some people maybe raise their ire. Go on your computer and look up Theodore Roosevelt's quote about hyphenated Americans. I think that says it all. He says there's no such thing as a hyphenated American. And that's the problem with this country today. Everybody has their ethnic roots, and it's nice to acknowledge them. But when you're an American, you're an American. And that's what Theodore Roosevelt said. He said, you can't be an Italian American. You can't be, you can respect your ethnicity, but you're either an American or you're not an American. And the problem is that this country has swung to the point where we're trying to protect ethnicity more than we're protecting the fact that we should be all Americans, and if we were all Americans, we would be a lot better off.
There you go. Thank you for watching. This has been Spindle City Straight Talk. Have a great day.